I was clicking the wrong button. Good evening. Thank you, Tori, so much for that song. That was awesome. Acapella is not very easy, and you killed it. Very good job. That was awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited for the opportunity to preach. I never take this lightly. I'm also excited for the Reds. Come on, Reds. Late September, early October, really the whole month of October is one of the best stretches for sports. You have so many sports being played right now, and obviously baseball being one of them. Colton, I am sorry, buddy, that your Mets got eliminated, but go Reds. Don't worry, we'll lose in the first round. Football is ramping up. Basketball is starting in October. I'm excited to see where our UK Wildcats will do this year, Kyle. And then for a lesser-known sport, the league championship for disc golf is this coming weekend. Nobody else in this room cares. They are faking it. But that's good to know. I love this time of year sports, but as I've continued watching sports after I haven't been playing organized sports, there's been a bit of a shift of how I watch sports. When I was a young whippersnapper, I used to ask the question, like, could I ever do something like that? And now I'm sitting on the couch, and the answer is definitely no. Now I just sit there and reminisce. I start thinking about all the teams I was a part of and some of the cool plays that I was able to witness or be a part of. I was talking to some of my buddies about high school golf because their sectionals just happened, and that brought back so many memories. And then I started thinking about some of the coaches that I had when I was playing organized sports, and the bond I have with them, because they poured into me and they made me better outside of the sport, made me better in the sport. And as I was reflecting on this, I was talking to a few different people that shared that same sentiment. And I talked to Nate Lloyd, and he was like, "Yeah, I wish I still had a coach. I wish I had like a Bill Hayes or a Greg Wilkins just like lay into me and just tell me what I'm doing wrong." Because in the sport, you have that every day. Now, that is not an invitation, Greg or Bill, to go up to Nate and just start yelling at him. But I was thinking about that, and I was like, hey, he's got a point. I miss that too. And as I was thinking about that, it kind of left me distraught because I haven't allowed myself to be coached like that anymore. Obviously, we're not in a sport. I'm not in an organized basketball league or anything like that. But I was so distraught because I don't allow myself to be coached like that anymore. I don't know where this shift happens in our lives, but a lot of times we get to this point where we get comfortable in the idea that we can figure it out on our own. We can figure it out ourselves, whether it be the excuse we are far too old to be coached or to learn from somebody else. I'm the one that should be coaching somebody. I don't need to be coached. Or we're far too mature to be taught how to do something. Or sometimes we are too young. Well, they just don't get me. They don't understand what it's like to be a teenager. That's real. So tonight we're going to be diving into this principle of being coachable. Let's turn our Bibles to Exodus 4. Now, my prayer for this message as we look at the example of Moses is we learn how we can stay or be more coachable, to see the different avenues that God uses to coach us, whether that be from our own mistakes or possibly the teaching of or from others, or directly from the Lord. So first I want to look at how we can learn from our own mistakes. We're in Exodus 4, but I want to quickly look over chapters 2 and 3. Chapter 2 starts with Moses making a mistake, letting his emotions get the best of him, and killing that Egyptian man, and then fleeing to Jethro, finding his wife, living there for most of his life, or a lot of his life. Chapter 3, we have the well-known encounter of the burning bush, where God calls Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. And in response, we have Moses doubting in verse 11 of chapter 3. Then the chapter finishes with God speaking to Moses and how he can be bold when talking. When he's going into Egypt, how he can be bold because of who is sending him. I am that I am. I am is sending him. And then we get to chapter 4. We find ourselves here, and we first see the response of Moses to God saying those things to him. So let's read. Verse 1. And Moses answered and said, But, behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice. For they will say, The Lord hath not appeared unto thee. But he just heard God speak to him through a burning bush and tell him he has no need to worry because I am is sending him. And the first word in his response to the Lord was doubt. But Lord. But, let's continue reading. Verse 2, And the Lord said unto him, What is that in thine hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it. And the Lord said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it, and became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that the Lord God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, hath appeared unto thee. Verse 6, And the Lord said furthermore unto him, Put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken to thy voice, to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe also these two signs, neither hearken unto thy voice, that thou shalt take of the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry land, and the water which thou takest out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land. We see God perform two miracles here. He makes Moses' rod turn into a serpent, and then Moses goes to grab the tail of the serpent, and it becomes a rod again. He says, Put your hand into your bosom and take it out. And his hand was leprous as snow, it was white. He says, Put it back in. And he takes it out, and it was right back to his regular flesh. So at this point, God has spoken to Moses through a bush, a burning bush. He has spoken a powerful truth into Moses' calling that we saw in chapter 3, I am is sending you. He bumped, and then in chapter 4, he bumped it up a notch with those two miracles. Now let's look at verse 10 and see Moses' response after these three or four things. Verse 10, And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. He doesn't even acknowledge those miracles. He immediately goes into an excuse. He doubts the Lord again, and he immediately goes into an excuse. Has anybody ever done that? When someone's talking to you, you don't even know what they say because you're just thinking of an excuse of how to get out of it? I can't be the only one. That's what Moses does here. Oh, I just can't speak. I'm not good. I'm slow of speech. I'm not a good speaker. Verses 11 and 12. And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb or deaf, or the seeing or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say. God does a similar thing here as he does with Job. He asks a question to try and get Moses to realize who he's talking to. And God tells Moses, I made your mouth. I can be your mouth. I can give you the words to say. Verse 13. And he said, O my Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou wilt send. Verse 14. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. And he said, Is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? I know that he can speak well, and also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee. And when he seeth thee, he will be glad in his heart. God had enough. And he tells Moses that he has already sent Aaron to him. He's already on the way. And Aaron will be the spokesperson for him. All right, that's your excuse? Okay, I'm going to answer that with your brother. And he's going to go with you, and he will be your mouth for you. He will be the spokesperson for you. If you continue reading in the next two chapters, chapters 5 and 6, you see Moses does what he's commanded to do. He goes to Pharaoh with Aaron, and he confronts Pharaoh. But that only makes things worse for the Israelite people. And now the Israelite people, are upset with Moses. And in response to this, in verses 22 and 23, we see that Moses doubts the Lord again. At the beginning of chapter 6, God displays that he is going to reveal himself to Moses as something different than Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac. It's a very cool study, seeing the different names of God in here. He renews the covenant with Moses, squashing any reason to doubt from here on out. But in verse 12, Moses gets rejected by the Israelites, and he doubts again. Mistake after mistake, doubt after doubt. He received sign after sign, reason after reason to just obey, and yet he doubted. Now, before we get any further, I think it's important to realize that it is very easy for us sitting in these pews to judge Moses for those mistakes. How could he do that? He just saw a rod turn into a snake and then back into a rod. How in the world? Like, can't you just believe? It is very easy to lose track of the fact that we do the same thing. We slip into the same sin, the same mistake. We make the same mistakes. They might not look the same as Moses, but we do the same thing. So as we shift into how Moses learned from this, let's consider our own lives. Evaluate our own lives. Know we are in the same boat a lot of time as Moses here. Our perspective should not be, Moses is crazy for doubting. Like, what in the world? To, oh yeah, I do this too. Because this chapter 6, is a turning point in Moses' life. This is a turning point for the entire account of the 10 plagues and for the majority of Moses' life. Chapter 6, verse 13. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, and gave them a charge unto the children of Israel, and unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. I read this verse as God having that final talk with his kid. The this ends now conversation. Parents, you know what I'm talking about? Teens, you know what I'm talking about? It's the scary conversation. Like, all right, enough. That's what my dad said. He just looked at me with that look and said, enough. That was the end of conversation type of thing. We've played your games. I've had patience with you, but now you are going to obey. You are going to do this. You guys can do this, and you are going to do this. You are going to deliver the Israelites out of Egypt. As we continue through the account of Moses, we see Moses growing and becoming the leader he was called to be. Instead of doubting, he is the one leading. He's walking with boldness. Instead of doubting his speaking ability and having Aaron speak for him, he's the main spokesperson by the middle of chapter 8. It goes from saying the Lord told Moses and Moses told Aaron then Aaron told the people, to the Lord told Moses, and Moses told Pharaoh or the people in chapter 8. And then from there on. Instead of being afraid of the Israelites following him, in chapter 11, verse 13, we see the Israelites showing him favor, even the Egyptians showing him favor. Instead of seeing the cowardly man making up all types of excuses of why not to go to Egypt, we see Moses becoming the man of God who he was called to be. Now, how did this happen? God coaching Moses, teaching Moses, and allowing Moses to go through those mistakes. You see, God doesn't go through our lives with a ruler and hitting our hand every time we're about to mess up. God doesn't inhibit us from making poor decisions right before we make a mistake. Sometimes God sits there and says, hey, this is the truth, and then watches us fail to remember. Sometimes he says, hey, I can do this through you, and watches us try and do it in our own power. Hey, you should probably not do that, and then watches us do it anyway. God allows us to make mistakes because mistakes is one of the biggest avenues for learning and to be able to be taught, to be coached. Everything Moses made an excuse about in chapters 2 and 5, in chapters 7 through 13, he demonstrates the opposite. He demonstrates that he learned from them. Yes, he needed a little push. Don't we all? But because of that, he became the man that God wanted him to be. So we can learn from our own mistakes. We can learn from our own lives. We can be coachable from our own sins. But that is not the only way we learn. That should not be the only way we learn. If that's the only way we learn, then we are going to live a very hard life. A lot of hard lessons. Moses also learned from those around him. Let's turn over to Exodus 18. To set the stage here, they are out of Egypt. They are now at the base of the mountain, and they are starting to become a nation. They are starting to do things like a nation would. And Moses has taken a lot of responsibility upon himself. Everybody that has a disagreement or everybody that has something that needs to be dealt with, they go to Moses. It is unsustainable because it is only him doing things. In verses 13 and 19, we see that Jethro, his father-in-law, comes in. And let's read verse 13 through 19. And it came to pass on the morrow, that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from the morning unto the evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, What is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning unto even? And Moses said unto his father-in-law, Because the people come unto me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another. And I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws. And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, The thing that thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away, both thou and this people that is with thee. For this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God. Here, Jethro sees what Moses is doing, and he's like, this thing is not good. You cannot continue to do this. But the most important part of this here is verse 24. Verse 24. So Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he said. Now, this is a very direct form of being coachable by others. Moses was doing something. Jethro saw the fault, gave him the reason why it's a fault, gave him what would happen if he continued it, then gave Moses advice, and Moses hearkened to Jethro's advice because he was a trusted coach or mentor in his life, and it was a blessing unto Moses and the people of Israel. Our hearts ought to be soft to advice. Moses did not ask for this advice. He did not seek it out. He did not say, "Hey, Jethro, what do you think?" And yet he got it. And instead of saying, "Nah, you have no idea what you're talking about. You don't know these people. You're not even part of these people. This is what we're going to do, and I'm not changing it." He took the advice, hearkened to it. Why? Because Jethro was more experienced. Jethro was wiser. Moses had all the respect in the world for Jethro. There are people in our lives that are wiser, that are more experienced, that also see something from a different perspective than us. And all of those we can learn from. After the service, you have the pick of the litter of who to talk to. You could go up to 30 different people and learn something. You might also get some advice you didn't ask for. Somebody might come up to you without any prompting, tell you how you have done everything wrong and this is how you should do it. Be careful with those people. But if someone comes up to you that is a trusted somebody and gives you advice, what is our response to that? How do we respond to that? What is the most important thing that Moses did here was hearken to that advice that he was given. He did not cower away from it. He did not let his pride get in the way. He hearkened to it, and it blessed him and the people. There's another element of being coachable from others. Let's turn our Bibles to 1 Corinthians 10. 1 Corinthians 10. Now, I'm going to be a little nerdy with you tonight. When I see this concept, I immediately go back a few years. I was watching a professional video game in public, okay? I was at a college and career outing, and I was watching it, and somebody started picking on me, as they should, and they were asking me, "Why are you watching pro esports? That is so nerdy," and they started chanting, "Geek, geek, geek." No, they didn't. I'm just kidding. But man, that made me think, like, why am I watching this in front of people? And this thought came to mind, well, why does anybody watch anybody do anything? Entertainment? Sure. But also, I was watching the best of that video game. I was trying to learn from the best of the best. And then I also got to thinking, I am not ever going to watch somebody who is worse than me play that game. We are not watching on television T-ball. We are watching the Reds. That's not a good example. We're watching the Brewers, okay? We're watching the best. And as an athlete, as somebody who's trying to get better, you are going to watch the best of the best. Do whatever it is. 1 Corinthians 10 and 11 tells us that we should be looking for examples, okay? And the examples that we have are written in this book. Now all these things happen, 1 Corinthians 10, 11. Now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. We have examples all over the place. We have a plethora of people we can learn from in this room. We have a plethora of people that we can learn from in this book. We have biographies of people in the library. Better yet, get the Kindle app and you can be in your bed and still read it with the lights off. If you don't want to read, we have podcasts. And somebody else will read it and then tell you about it. Those are great. But most importantly, we have the greatest book of examples in our laps. 66 books of examples of people that we can learn from. We are not lacking with examples or ways to be coached by others. But we have to go back to the word hearken. We are filled to the brim with possible examples. But are we willing to swallow our pride and actually learn from them? We are blessed to have this luxury of having almost too many. We are blessed to have enough funds in our life to have a copy of God's Word. Or better yet, have 20. Or better yet, have a $1,000 iPhone or phone that we can read on there. We are blessed to have a church with hundreds of people to learn from. We have these for a reason. We are blessed to have them. Are we being coachable by them? So Moses learned from his own mistakes. Moses learned from Jethro, from other people. But there was no better coach or teacher in his life than God. Being coachable or teachable by God. Now, I'm sure you have all seen this common thread through this study. It was not just Moses who automatically learned from his mistakes. If it was up to him, he'd still be with Jethro. It was not a coincidence that Moses' father-in-law was Jethro, and that Jethro saw what he saw and gave the advice that he gave. Every step of Moses' path, the greatest coach, the greatest teacher, was right there beside him, helping him along the way. God was the one who called Moses through that burning bush. God was the one who showed Moses patience as he performed miracle after miracle to show Moses his power. God was the one who picked Moses up when he was distraught and got him going again. God was the one who put the end to his doubt by giving him that charge, that this ends now convo. God was the one who put Jethro and Aaron in Moses' life. All of this was God working in his life, God coaching him, God teaching him. God's fingerprints were on every part of Moses' life and this account. And Moses learned from him. I encourage you, we don't have enough time, we'd be here all week. I encourage you to read the rest of Exodus this week and see the difference between chapters 3 and 6 Moses to the Moses up on Mount Sinai, to the Moses that led his people, to the Moses who went to the Lord first when problems arose, the Moses who sought after the Lord. See the growth from Moses before getting coached by God to the end of his life. Yes, there were bumps in the road. But then ask the question, what would have happened? Just think about it. What would have happened if Moses was not coachable? Are we allowing God to coach us? Are we allowing God to teach us? All of this in Moses' life was God. Yeah, Moses is the human example, but everything in here was because of God. Are we allowing that to happen in our lives? You see, God's hand was evident in Moses' life, and that same God has his hand all over your life. And it's not just in the big things, it's in the small things. When he points out something in our life that needs to be changed or done a different way, what do? Do we listen to it or let it linger? When you get the little prod from the Holy Spirit to do something, how do we handle that? What do we do? Well, how do we respond to that? When God performs a miracle in our lives, how do we respond? Oh, that was great. So what about them Reds? When God is so evidently a part of a situation or circumstance in our lives, how do we respond to that? God has also placed people in our lives. I've said it a few times. The people in this room, the people in your Sunday school class, they were put there by God. Your family, God chose your family. Your friends, He gave you those friends. The teachers in your life, put there by God. God gave us the resource of the Word of God. God has given us the opportunity to have technology. Hand up here. I use it too much to not learn. I'm too busy putting 3 Candy Crush things in a row to get a high score or something. It is amazing to see God's hand on our lives if we just take a step back. To see Him work through our mistakes so that He can teach us. To see Him work through other people so that He can teach us. And how He teaches us directly. See, God is the ultimate coach. He is actively trying to coach all of us up. We saw the example of Moses and how God taught him and coached him up. That is the same God that is doing that to us. But the key, will we hearken to Him? Will we be coachable to Him and to the different ways we see Him work? How will we respond when that hard love comes? How will we respond when the unsolicited advice comes? How are we going to respond when this ends now conversation comes up? With our relationships, will we allow God to coach us through them? Will we let people speak into our lives, speak truth into our lives? When our ideas don't match God's calling, what is going to happen? Are we going to fight it? Or are we going to allow God to coach us? Will we be coachable? My prayer in closing is that we be a coachable church. A church family that is soft to the Lord's teachings. A soft heart to the Lord moving. I pray we have an attitude that invites God as our coach or teacher in our lives as He teaches us from our own mistakes, from the people in our lives, and from Him directly. I'll pray, and then Brother Brent will lead our invitation. Dear Lord, thank You for this day. Thank You for the amazing service this morning. Thank You for everyone that is in attendance. Lord, be with us as we think about this. Are we coachable? Are we allowing You to coach us up? Are we allowing You to teach us from our own mistakes, from other people, and from You? Are we soft is our heart soft to the idea of You coaching, being our ultimate, our perfect coach? Lord, as the invitation starts, if someone needs to talk to You about this, give them the courage to come up and talk to You. Soften their hearts so that they can start this journey with You of being coachable. Lord, be with us throughout the week. In Your name I pray, amen.